Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is David Muniz, and I work at Senha Segura. Today, we're gonna introduce a webinar called RSA Conference 2022. Today, I'm here with Rogério Godoy, Roger. He's
Yes, sir.
our Chief Marketing Officer, and he will be discussing together with me and Daryl um, about RSA Conference. Daryl is our Vice President for Sales in North America, and we have a lot to talk about cybersecurity and everything that happens during RSA Conference. I'd like to remind that everyone is on mute mode, and you can, of course, send your questions and your remarks and tell us about what are your experiences about the topics that we will discuss today. And at the end of the session, we'll have some time to answer your questions. So without further ado, let us start the webinar. First, talking about cybersecurity. Well, RSA conference is a cybersecurity conference, and this aspect is gaining prominence from the operational level through the C-level meeting rooms in organizations of all sizes in the industry. And this specifically happens because, well, cybersecurity risks are increasingly linked to business risk, and this can influence business continuity on organizations. To give us an idea on how cybersecurity can cost and what is the burden of cybersecurity incidents for companies, according to 2021 cost of a data breach report, the average cost of a data breach was of a $4.22 million. So, enable to understand how the malicious attackers act and to develop defense mechanism and to ensure the protection of the environment, information security professionals need to understand how the dynamic of those attacks happens. And one of the most recognized ways to do that is to participate in specific cybersecurity events. The most important of them, well, the most widely recognized and widely known is the RSA conference that takes place in the Moscone Center in San Francisco, California. Well, the sessions that are offered in the RSA conference address a wide variety of topics, and the participants can not only learn about the latest and most advanced cybersecurity solutions, but also gather with colleagues and peers to understand and to change ideas. Well, the first of those topics that I'd like to cover during the session is zero trust. Well, zero trust, we could understand that it was before a buzzword, but as well, we get the migration to remote models, especially due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We understand that it is here to stay, and probably our invitation will talk more about this. And first of all, we need to understand what is zero trust. Well, zero trust is not a specific standard, but we consider zero trust as a set of principles that are used to design and implement cybersecurity in infrastructure. Well, we have, and to give an idea on how zero trust is going, NIST is releasing a draft on the zero architecture guide. And also, we have the President Biden's 2021 Zero Trust Executive Order to cover in order to make sure that all organizations and all government organizations are treating zero trust and treating cybersecurity properly. During the RSA, the message for CISOs wanting to implement zero trust was start small, don't boil the ocean. And then I hand over the word to you, Daryl. What does exactly start small, don't boil the ocean means for you? And good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah. So for me, it's about when you're talking about zero trust, it's about instilling the understanding of what zero trust is to your customers, to your constituents internally within the organization. So zero trust, as you started to talk about, was it's not about zero faith. It's about removing trust so hackers can't leverage that against the rest of us. So we're talking about it starts with technology and execution, but it's more than that. So when you say start small, start with the educational aspect because that's extremely important. One of the examples is the best approach is to gently explain to your employees that the devices that can be compromised can be just done just as easily as users can be, right? And that has nothing to do with whether the employees are trustworthy or not. So the best way to effectively implement zero trust is to do it iterative. Am I saying that right? Iterative. I can't say it. Iteratively. I'm so sorry. And what I mean by that is that the entire organization has to buy into the concept. That also means that the leadership from the top down has to buy into zero trust and get the rest of the organization to buy in as well. From there, what do? Well, you build on that collaboration across all the departments. The bottom line here is that you absolutely must get all of the groups and stakeholders and their leaders to buy into zero trust, the concept, and then so that you're all on the same page, because it can be a very difficult thing to achieve.
Yeah, and I can sort of we as we were at the RSA conference, and it's really it's kind of being in a security roller coaster. So as you start the first day and you just walked into this trail, you have like 4 days of just pure straightforward content, and it hits you in different ways and provides you with different emotions at the same time. And I think the great thing about you suggesting, David, that we would start this conversation talking about zero trust is that, well, me and Daryl, we got to see a lot of that topic in all sorts of situations. So it doesn't really matter which way or from which perspective you look into security. At some level, zero trust comes in. And like you said in your speech, and to Daryl's point here, zero trust stopped being like a trend, nice, cool word to use. And now, as far as the RSA conference goes, people are actually talking about how is it that we implement this. And both of us, me and Daryl, we joined this session, and I don't even know which day was, if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but they had 3 different CISOs, and diversity was a thing for that panel because it was a guy and two girls that were working in security for some time already when they had this conversation. And they were saying what were their challenges as being like the first CISOs in that particular company and trying to implement zero trust. And that's when I think this actually line came up to start small and don't boil the ocean. I think each one had a different approach. So I got like, there's not a one way to do it. So they each found their own way to pursue it. But each of them had, in a way, this mindset of, well, like Daryl said, first of all, you need to have education for the entire company regarding security and regarding what a zero trust approach means as something that it's going to be for those that are part of the company for a long time, but especially for those that have just joined it. And I don't remember his name, Daryl, the Japanese CISO, the guy that was the only guy in the panel, but he said that as he started being a CISO in the company that he was working for, that was the first time that they had someone for us with that particular position. And he said, well, in the first 30 days, I didn't do anything apart from studying and trying to understand the environment that I was, in, and what could be the challenges. And he said that he tried to pick out of everything that he saw, he tried to pick 3 things that he felt that were the biggest challenges for the next year. So since zero trust is about everything, right? Like Daryl said, it's not about zero faith. You always, trust in people, but you use a zero trust approach so you can protect them. And so he tried to look into what were the 3 main challenges. So he could, plan on top of those 3 challenges, a 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 160 days, a period of times and touch points where he could, address those 3 main challenges to fix them as time went by. And another thing that he also did was, what are the 3 things that scares me the most? That he was like shocked by, like, wow, this should not be allowed to people to do, or this is really, something that was shock to him. So as Darryl was saying, a zero trust approach, it's not a milestone. So it's not something that you would start and at some point that would be done, and you don't have to think about it. It's a journey. So it's a never-ending process, a never-ending work. So once you solve those three challenges and you solve those three things that scared you the most, you have to be able to, and that's the part for the CISO itself, I think, that it's more challenging, because as they are part of the board, how can they be creative enough so they can address the message of security to the board of the company, so the CEO knows why is it important and why should they, plan on it. And one of the girls at that panel said that as she started working to try to develop zero trust in the company, that it took her 6 months. Do you remember that, Darryl?
Yeah.
It took her 6 months to actually be able to go to a board meeting with the CEO and the rest of directors, and to get them to understand what was it that she was saying. And I actually have this note down here that translate tech to business. That's one of the hardest jobs for the CISO. How can they make sure that they will think about zero trust in every perspective of the company if the board or if the CEO does not understand the tech side of it? And you cannot go to them and talk about technology like you would do with your peer or with someone in your own team. You have to be able to translate that, and you need to be creative.
You have to speak the language of your audience, right? So
yes.
So in this case, you have to understand, if you're talking to your CEO or if you're speaking to the board or any of the C-suite stakeholders, for example, you have to get the point across that zero trust is a way to help to enable the business, and then put that in terms that they'll understand and how that impacts their particular job focus or function, right?
Well, from what I got from you guys, I think start implementing the basics is the message, right? To start small, to start with the basics, and then advance through the other waves.
That's exactly right.
Something interesting that you said, we both said, was about support. Well, to implement zero trust and to implement zero cybersecurity, we need to get support from the C level, and also to implement cyber awareness. I think this is an important point to mention here.
Well, and then break it down into phases and steps through that iterative process, right? So let's get when you want to implement zero trust and you want to get that buy-in, you work on getting those initial quick wins, right? So you focus on the most important assets that you're looking to protect. So identify the assets, systems, or data that you're looking to protect that's most critical to the success of your business and the operation. And then you continue to break this down into smaller steps. So you've got these wins, and you're showing your constituents, your security team, the business owners and the business users, as well as your executives, that you're making progress. And here's the progress that we're making, why we started at with this top priority first. And then they start to buy in. They see that you've secured the most critical new business application that's going to lead to X bit of revenue, whatever however they're measuring the success of that application or that business. I think that was the key. Once they started to see the value there in cybersecurity and zero trust and what it meant to the bottom line of the business, everybody started to buy in, and they became a part of the solution, right? They weren't pushing back any longer.
And I think to what you said, David, instead of thinking of you have to start with the basics, I think you have to start by finding what is the basic for you. And to that point, inside of the company, the CISOs had two different tips that I love. The first one was that, well, frameworks, they do work. So for the NIST, the NIST framework, it's one kind of framework that really helps. It doesn't do everything. So it won't be like a Bible that once you follow it, you'll be safe. It's not like that. None of them agree upon it. They all thought that, well, this is a great framework to address, but it won't solve everything. So that's one way to try to figure out what is the basics, for your own company. And the other thing that they said, if you had to choose, you should start with identity. that's something that I also took a note of, because identity is a way to not only guarantee that you are giving proper access and proper information to those that should have that, but you can also become you can also have accountability. So it allows you to understand where the problem may be, that you weren't able to see it because you just didn't know who the users were, or how many users you had, or what kind of users you have, or kind of privilege were being used, or and things like that. So the fact that they said, well, frameworks are a good way to start, and also think in identity first if you don't have anything. I think that's a way to put and how the basics could be for someone who's just trying to start with a zero trust approach to whatever they are working with.
Like the CISO said in the, I'm sorry, David, like the CISO said at RSA at the event, right? You have to start with identity because, according to like the Verizon data breach report that literally just came out, the most commonly targeted point of attack here is credentials, right? So
that's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
your credentials, your identity. That's the key. Which leads me to say there's two common things that I say here in the United States, right? If I have $1 to spend today to improve my security posture, spend it on identity, privileged access, identity management, credentials management, right? Which leads, why do I say that? Because it comes down to the Boolean logic of privileged identity. What I mean by that is, if identity is the new perimeter and elevated privilege is at the core of the kill chain, then your privileged identity absolutely must be the enterprise's most protected asset. And I think what we learned at RSA was all of the CISOs were in 100% agreement there.
Yeah,
I think that you mentioned something very interesting, that almost half of the cyber attacks are carried out through privileged credentials, and no wonder why they are called the keys of the kingdom, and also no wonder why Gartner has elected privileged access management as a top security project for 2 years in a row. So protecting the keys of the kingdom is essential to start with cybersecurity. I'm moving to the next topic now, which is ransomware. Well, probably you have heard a lot about this topic, right?
yeah.
Well, we have
Another
big names.
trendy word.
Yeah, another trendy word. And now that we have, recent claim data has revealed that there was a 40% increase in successful attacks against small and mid-sized organizations. And this is another interesting topic. But also, another other commonly leaked data on ransomware is financial, 63%, followed by customer and patient data with 48%. But I'd like to cover something interesting that also was mentioned in RSA, which is ransomware as a service. So with ransomware as a service, malicious attackers were able to escalate cyber attacks, because people with no knowledge on programming and IT were able to develop their own ransomware, which is something what I think is really bad for companies. And to mitigate that, we have cyber insurance, for example, that is another buzzword that companies um, are hiring cyber insurance to cover ransomware-based attacks. But aside from cyber insurance, which is a way to fight ransomware, what do you guys think are other ways to fight ransomware? And I'd like to give another to provoke something here. Well, the company was targeted by a ransomware attack. Should they pay the ransom or not? I think that's a good question for you guys.
I think there's a lot of questions in what you just said. That's just the last one is the one that's it's more relevant at the end of the day for so people, especially for those that have gone through a cyber attack. But I think, and Daryl can probably go further in this, but as you said, you started by saying that we heard this thing about ransomware as a service in the RSA, and they literally showed us sort of like a menu of the kind of ransomware attack that if a company is looking at it, or if an attacker is looking into it, what is it they should do, how much they should pay to actually have access to a particular kind of ransomware attack. Of course, that's illegal, and that's not, open in the internet for you to purchase, to hire. But at the same day, for those that are into, using ransomware attack as a way to get into any sort of organization, it doesn't matter if it's a private organization or a public organization, they have a set, pretty much well structured menu of the kind of ransomware attacks that they should look into it, depending on what is it they're trying to achieve. And I also took a note regarding this, and that's scary because it feels like the crime organizations, the ransomware attacks, or the ransomware viruses that, the sources that are out there, they're very well organized, way more than I would wish for them to be.
Yeah,
And
I'm sorry to. There's so
no,
much
go
more
for it.
than, there's so much more than just threat actors. Or
Yes.
these criminal organizations are actually running and behaving as though they're vendors themselves, right?
Yes.
So what I mean by that is not only are they offering ransomware as a service with this a la carte menu that you can pick and choose from, the clients you want to target, the systems you want to target, the data, the
Yep.
types of data that you want to go after, but these threat actors, they're so sophisticated, and the reason that they're able to run like a real business or a real vendor is because it also starts in the back end. It should be noted that these attackers, they're willing to pay to play. And what I mean by that is they're investing millions of dollars of their own money, their own capital in order to buy all of the current cybersecurity solutions that are
Yep.
available out there in order to figure out how to defeat them. So they're coming at it as a service provider, looking at the technologies that exist and how to break through them, so they can understand just how to go about defeating the system, so that they can turn around and market this as a service to their clients on the dark web, let's say. So, for example, let's say you're a bank and you recently implemented the next generation firewall or whatever that you just purchased. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're protected, simply because these threat actors have already figured out a way how to hack through it, how to defeat it, and remain hidden while doing so. So now the question is, if you've been breached and held for ransom, should you pay it? Yes or no? The funny thing was, from the RSA conference, where we saw literally hundreds of CISOs being polled, what was their vote? Literally, I don't think anybody raised their hand to pay the ransom. Literally, everybody said, do not pay the ransom. Work with law enforcement, work with your team to respond right away, which was surprising. I thought that there'd be more of a mix than that. Wouldn't you, Roger? Was that your expectation as well?
Yes, well, to the last question, I think the answer is that you should never pay a ransomware, because it's an illegal thing. If you think about you're being a victim of a crime. So as any victim of an actual crime, you should look into how your state deals with it, and try to follow that lane. And I think as we were, surrounded by security professionals, everyone there was like, no, you should not pay the ransomware, because if you pay it, it's like you're providing incentive for new attackers to keep using ransomwares, because people keep paying it. So we should, as a security side of the market, as the people that should be concerned about cyber crimes, we should never be never, who am I to say it, but most people naturally said, no, don't pay it. But it's and I think at some point we will reach to that particular section that me and Dare were a part of, where they simulated this discussion inside of an actual company. It was awesome, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it today at some point. But I think it's a very personal decision as well, because I'm against paying it at all situations, but there is a line that goes in between what is it that you can do and how quickly can you solve a problem. So let's say that you're a part of a government institution that addresses electricity or water supply, and you've been a victim of a ransomware attack. How long will it take for you to solve it? And how many people will be effective in their basic necessities if that happens to you? So should you pay? No, you shouldn't. But what is it that you can do, and how long would that take? So there's always a line that needs to be balanced in the effect that attack has on the company that you're a part of. So if you're just maybe losing money, you could hold on into it for longer. And that's where maybe the insurance companies comes in, as David was saying. So if you have a cyber uh, policy for insurance, so if you go through a ransomware attack, that insurance company will support you through a period of time because you already, you hired an insurance for it. That will give you enough oxygen to go through this process so you can solve it, everything that's regarding the attack internally, to get back on your feet without, paying it, without supporting further ransomware attackers.
And as we learned at the event, there were those who did pay in the previously who did pay a ransom. It's a very slippery slope because there's no guarantee that
Yep.
once you've paid the ransom that
You will actually, be released.
they'll release your data. Maybe will they give you back your data uncorrupted? Yes or no? Let's assume they do give you back your data and access to your systems and everything. Did they leave any command and control or any sort of executable code that's hidden in there that allows them to come back and do it all over again? And we've seen many different examples worldwide of where that was indeed the case. So really, I think the key of this particular session at RSA was, how do you prevent ransomware attacks and what can you do about it? And I believe that they highlighted the top 5 ways to go about doing so. And I'll kick the first one off if that's okay with you. And that's you start by plugging the holes in your security architecture. So just know that the hackers are literally leveraging CVEs for their initial access, remote code execution or local privilege escalation. So they're using CVEs to figure out how to break in without you knowing it. Right? We've seen examples, right? Microsoft Exchange, there was the SolarWinds and the Sonic Wall examples. So just understand that they're willing to pay to buy the security software and hardware that you have in order to find the faults, in order to penetrate your systems.
It's interesting that you mentioned about SolarWinds because that's our next topic. Well, for malicious attackers, supply chain attacks have become an efficient way of targeting organizations from one single entry point. And now, with all vendors and organizations connected through APIs and through programming and through softwares and through APIs, it is important not only to ensure your cybersecurity, but also ensure the cybersecurity of your supply chain. And companies, they have suppliers all over, but at the same time, they don't know those suppliers. It's not worth, and it is not worth investing in software security if you cannot ensure your supply chain is secure. And to give us an idea on how those attacks grew, there's a study from Argon Security that says that the software supply chain attacks grew more than 300% in 2021 compared to 2020. And to introduce, now I'll leave you guys with the next questions. Once the hackers are in the infrastructure, why would they ever want to leave? And I think that was a hot topic in the one of the hot topics in the conference, right?
It was, and they won't. They won't ever leave. Once they're inside the systems, they're not going to leave. They've gained access. They're going to implant what they're going to do next is they're going to implant their defense evasive tools, right, to avoid detection. Why? Because they're going to, once they're in, they know that they now have the ability to move laterally within the organization in order to find, as you said, the keys to the kingdom, which is privileged identity or credentials. So they're not going to leave. Why aren't they concerned about being on the inside? Because they know that they're not scared at all. They know that there's a challenge there. They know that you're simply sampling data, so they know to focus on these evasive tools because you can't see everything. You have to pick and choose what to protect based on your priorities. So they know that they can basically hide there almost forever. So the focus has to be on the most important asset. Again, going back to what we said at the beginning, you have to focus on protecting the most important assets that you have that absolutely must be protected. The keys to the kingdom, of course, is going to be your privileged identity and credentials, privileged credentials. Start there. Roger?
Interesting.
I think no, I was going to talk about, well, what are, according to what we got there, what could be the primary areas of risk for the supply chain, strategy for an attacker to use. And well, on a daily basis, if you just map inside of your company, it doesn't matter what you do, but once you go to the digital transition, what kind of solutions do you use? What is it that you need to hire? And maybe as a software, as a service, so marketing solutions, CRM solutions, and financial solutions, especially the financial team. What is it that they're hiring currently so they can do their job better, right? But all of those softwares, behind those softwares, they have the code. And most softwares use today open source codes. And that's one way for an attacker to actually get inside of the company and search for the most important information, the credentials that will grant them access to the most important information of the company. So open source codes for softwares, they usually, and everyone, or at least people from the IT world, they know that they will have to update those open source codes with packets that come every now and then. And those facts, they usually they come to solve problems that they didn't know that they had up until they figured that out. So those were the topics that for an attacker to use a supply chain, that's one way to do it. Uh, Another thing that they're searching for those software, like Daryl said, they will hire a solution, a particular solution, to try to figure out what is it that solution has that could be misused for an attack purpose. So another thing that they talk about is the CI/CD pipeline for development. So if your company is into the development side of the work, or if you're developing a solution or a software, you definitely should look into your CI/CD pipelines to search for secrets or credentials that are spread across all the coding that you're putting out there. And if that is not protected, and that if that's not correctly managed, you will be a possibility for an attacker to use your solution, to use your software to reach out to your customer base, to clients that are hiring you. And if that comes out, and if people ended up knowing that your solution, your software, is actually the weak side, the weak link in that security chain, your customers may not trust you anymore, and that's a problem for you. So if you are the kind of company that are working to developing solutions and softwares, you have to look into CI/CD pipelines to make sure that you're covering that, because that's where, as far as the supply chain goes, that's another area where attackers are coming in from to be inside of the company and move forward towards the credentials that they're looking into.
Yeah, great point. The three primary areas of risk when you're talking about supply chain attack and vulnerability, obviously the vulnerable package usage, right? So exploiting the existing vulnerabilities, package poisoning, as you just mentioned, compromised pipeline tools, and then of course code and artifact integrity, right? Making sure that you're not uploading bad code to the source code repositories, or that bad code or corrupted code is not being uploaded, because that of course directly impacts the artifact quality and the security posture.
One thing that I took a note of was that they said about this was treat home Wi-Fi. So now we have a lot of people working from home, right? So because of pandemic or whatever it is that we're going to move from now, a lot of people are doing like both. So going a few days a week to the office and some days working from home. And the tip that we heard at the RSA was that you should treat Wi-Fi, home Wi-Fi, as you treat public Wi-Fi. That's another, because it is a supplier, right? So yeah, the employee is using his own Wi-Fi connection to work from home. So that connection as a home Wi-Fi, that's also an opportunity that should be treated for the company that employs that particular professional. They should treat that Wi-Fi connection as if it was a public Wi-Fi connection, because it allows people to have access to the devices that your employees is using while working for your company.
I think two interesting takeaways that we can get from you two is that, well, first of all, it's useless to invest in protecting your own development process if you cannot have awareness of how your third parties and how your supply chain is developing their software. And another interesting point to mention here is that it is impossible to protect what is not managed, and it is impossible to manage what is not known. So it is important to have awareness of what are your assets, what are your privileged credentials, where they are, who are the owners. So those are some of the questions that your information security team should be able to answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Um, we'll move to the next topic here, which is, well, we gotta have people to protect and to ensure cybersecurity in organizations. And I think I've been seeing this topic for quite a while. I think for 2 years now, I've been hearing about cybersecurity talent blackout. And I think this was something that was discussed during RSA conference. And according to the World Economic Forum, the world is lacking 3 million cybersecurity professionals. And with all the rising and increasing attacks, probably this demand will grow even further, not only to provide cyber leadership, to test and to secure system, and also to train people and to ensure digital hygiene. What do you guys think are good strategy, not only to form, but also to retain those cybersecurity professionals?
I
I
think
love
today,
the. Go
go ahead.
for it, Daryl. Go ahead.
Well, in today's shortage of qualified security specialists out there, right? You've got to look beyond just a typical candidate with a computer science degree, right?
Yep.
I think what we have to do is be more inclusive. What we learned at RSA was there were the three I's: the innovation, ingenuity, and inclusivity. And what we mean by inclusivity is anyone should be a cyber defender for the organization, for the corporation. So we need to mobilize our community much better than we have in the past, where they were talking about hiring processes, and they're finding that it's difficult to find people that are willing to take a job. They might have the skill set, but they're unwilling to take the position for one reason or another, which leaves us shorthanded. Now, where do we go for the candidate pool from here? Again, that's where the inclusivity comes from. So rather than keep just focusing on the seasoned professional, with a computer science degree with 20 years in the field, open up a little bit and to include other source pools, right? Community colleges, for example, are a great source for folks that are the former high school whiz kid who is a cybersecurity professional in his own right, who only went to only a community college. But here, this is somebody like a Steve Jobs or a Wozniak, right? These guys that are geniuses in their own right that maybe didn't finish their degree. So open it up a little bit to open your eyes to who the security professionals are out there who have the skills that you're looking for. And that also includes how you approach your view. So change the language of cyber from FUD and fear-based chatter and make it more positive and empowering for the hiring purposes, right? You want to attract the younger folks that are, again, these security specialists, or they understand security very well, but make it that's a more attractive type of role for them to go into than we've seen in the past. So be more inclusive. Consider, like I said, the whiz kids that are out there and the non-traditional candidates that are either no formal enterprise experience or that maybe doesn't have the Stanford degree that you're looking for. So open it up. You have to become more inclusive, and you have to open up your mind as to the possibilities out there. Did I miss anything, Roger?
No, and I to your point, I think one hashtag that they use while we are talking about how to, reach out for the cybersecurity professions that are out there but don't know that they are security professions yet, is that they said they use the hashtag "I do so for work." You remember that, Daryl?
That's right.
And I love that, because to work in the security space, it should actually guarantee that you're protecting what's most important, which is people's personal data information and companies' private information, so the company can keep doing what they were set up to do in the first place. So if you like working for your company, you can only keep working for it if that company is safely protected. So to be a part of the team who is dealing on a daily basis now with threats such as ransomware attacks and things like that, is to be sure that you're protecting what's most important, the core information of the company that you work for, that you have a connection with, that connects with your own purpose. So if you decide to work for any company, before you do so, you would look into, what is this company about? How are my values? connected to this company's values. And moving from that perspective, once you find it a match, so I want to work with this team because I connect with these people and with this mission that the company has. In order to make sure that that will have a future, you need to secure everything related to that company. And that's pretty much what a cybersecurity career offers to any professional who's looking into doing meaningful work. And
Great
I
point.
love, yeah, I love the line that they said that people should, inside of their, as we are, looking for new cybersecurity professionals, we should create the avenue for people to transition from whatever it is that they do now to become a cybersecurity professional. So, and to Daryl's point here, it's not just about having an IT background. You could be from, I don't know, you could have a law degree and get interested into moving forward to a cybersecurity lane by getting more specialized into norms and regulations the company needs to be compliant with in order to be secure, to be safe. And just this an example from the top of my head. So it's important for leaders that know that they need cybersecurity professionals to, inside of their own companies, create this avenue, create this lane for people to transition from whatever it is that they're doing now to go to the security space, because that's meaningful work. Like
Yeah.
they say, I do so for work.
And another great pool of candidates to recruit from, I think that is oftentimes overlooked, is the think of the folks that are transitioning out of the military, for example.
Yeah.
They're in cyber defense, in cyber defense forces, or some teams like that. CISOs that I know here in New York, in the banking financial services industries, they've done a wonderful job of opening that particular pipeline, because these are very seasoned professionals who are a great worker, right? They really do a great job. They're dedicated, but they've got these wonderful skills, and they're transitioning out of the military, and they're looking for a landing spot somewhere in the enterprise world, in the commercial world, and they're being overlooked. Oftentimes, they're being overlooked. So that's another great pipeline I think that you should consider when looking for seasoned security professionals to help fill this 3 million user gap that we've had, employee gap.
I think that people are realizing at the end. I think the core message is that people are realizing that cybersecurity is related to many more areas than just IT. And I think from my feeling is that CISOs are not just responding to the IT department. I think now that the leaders are considering that cybersecurity risks are more related to business risks. Information security are not just responding to, are now responding to the compliance team, like legal team, like Roger has said. Some information security areas are responding directly to the CEO. So I think it is a good attractive for people from other areas as well. Um, Now, one of these positions, now talking about CISOs, you have mentioned before about what they should be concerned on the 90 days of their position, and how they should listen, and instead of just talking. I want to explore this topic a little further with you guys. And what are the other things that you guys think that a CISO should be concerned about in the first 90 days of their position? And what are their top challenges?
Well, I'd like to add to what Roger was talking about when he said that to in your first 30 days as a CISO, you should come on board, be quiet, and listen. I think the quote that they gave was, "Shut up to your own ideas and listen to the team's concerns, challenges, and justification for the current and planned security projects before you start trying to make your own mark on the organization." The other thing I thought that was incredibly important was, when you do come at people from the side, meaning speak their language. So if you're talking with an infrastructure person, talk their language. If you're talking to somebody in the executive suite, the C-suite, go in with high-level alignments, because you've got to connect with what's important to them and to get the message across. So it's all about trust and connection, and coming up with ways to hit them right between the eyes.
Yeah, and I think I would name three things. So first one is to listen first, like Daryl said. You gotta listen. You gotta listen to everyone. You gotta have patience to understand what their struggles are, and why is it that's hard for them to implement security postures in their daily activities. So listen is very important. The second one would be partner up with different areas of the company. And if you have to, if you can choose, start with those areas that have some, natural connection with security. So the legal team, the compliance team, the all of those teams that a company may have that are interesting on what type of work that you're now up to set in that company as far as security goes. So try to team up with different areas so you have a, a more broad way of reaching out to the entire system, to the entire company once you start really putting into new actions and started working with it. And I think that there was a line, that's my third one, that said that, well, if you don't have any haters, you're not doing your job.
Do your job. That's right.
Yeah, I love that because it's true. You although you will listen to everyone and you will adapt your communication to every type of profession that you run into, at some point you will have to do things that someone is not going to like it, or that will affect their daily routine, or that will affect their job, or whatever it is, in order to make sure that everyone is safe. So you have to be ready to know that people may not be as happy with what is it that you're doing as you wish them to be, and that's okay. We can agree on disagree, right? The, the point of having a consent is not about everyone thinking the same way. It's about everyone having their own way of thinking, but at the end of the day, everyone's doing what's best for the company. And you have to be. I remember one of the girls, the CISO girl, was saying, "Well, people would not like what I had to say or what I had to do, but I was okay with it. I could deal with it. I wouldn't mind, the staring and the looks and maybe the talking that would come every now and then. You have to be able to do it because that's your job. So in order to create change, it will, create noise. And it's up to you as a CISO to be able to clean that noise and stick with what's most important for everyone."
Some of the points that I like that she mentioned was, again, how do you make that change or initiate that change? For the first things, after the first 30 days of getting to know everybody and understanding what the challenges are, is coming up with two different sets of lists. The first was the top 3 challenges that are facing the organization from a security perspective. And the second was the top 3 things that really scared you or scared the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah,
And then mark
yeah.
your progress on resolving them.
Yeah.
Another thing that she mentioned was your first hires, when you're first making your first hires to the team, they should be generalists that wear multiple hats, because you need to try to get as big of a bang as possible from those initial hires. Then you can get to be more specialized going forward. But then there's also, when speaking to the board of directors, tell the story. Don't just hit them with the slides packed with metrics. Show them the security team's critical missions and the progress that's being made against them. Help them understand what's at risk, how you're addressing those challenges, and how you're being measured against them, so that they understand the work you're doing, the value of that work, and so that they can continue to fund the projects that you're working on. And from a security perspective, you want to stand up a full committee that reports to the board in order to respond as soon as possible in case there is a breach of some kind. And they have to be accountable whenever a breach does take place. So get the full commitment from the board of directors, because the coordination amongst all the teams is so critical to your response to the breach, should you have one. And from there, you have to have a breach or ransomware playbooks that are already in place, so that your team knows how to respond immediately, and they're ready and willing and able to respond in real time. You don't want to try to figure out how to plug a hole after the ship is got a 100-foot hole in the side of it, right? You want to have plans in place that you can enact immediately. And then lastly, I think communication to all the stakeholders, including the affected customers and your constituents, is absolutely critical. It's always better to err on the side of prompt disclosure than not, right? Why? Because nobody ever gets criticized for disclosing too early or being too honest. So part of that communication strategy, I think it's also essential that you have and keep ongoing relationships with regulators and law enforcement too, so that you are able to respond quickly, effectively, and properly. So I
And I
guess,
think this is, sorry, go ahead, David.
no, I was just going to summarize. Please go ahead, David.
I was just going to say that this is taking into account for data privacy regulators. For example, when a data breach takes place, this is considered when they give us sanction, when they give companies sanctions. For example, if you communicate properly with your stakeholders, if you take the proper measures to retain and to eliminate the and to contain the data breach, so those are taken into account. If you're a victim of a data breach, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be fined, but if you don't take the proper actions to remediate and to detect and to remediate the data breach, then if you don't take those actions, yes, you will be fined. I think that's a good message to bring here.
So I think the bottom line is, transparency is key, right?
Hmm.
Won't the corporation realize that it's under attack? It should notify its internal constituents and teams, as well as its customer base. Make it public. Don't do what Yahoo did many years ago, where they hid it for years and
Hmm.
they remained exposed for a long time. Don't do anything like that, because no company. Let's be honest. No company has ever been crucified publicly for disclosing a breach and notifying their customers as soon as possible. On the flip
Hmm.
side, if you're not disclosing the breach, or the fact that the user data has been compromised, we've seen organizations suffer greatly, as they should.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting point. I have one question here, but I think we're running out of time. Do you guys want to answer? We have a question from the audience.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I think there's a question here about zero trust and about small and medium businesses. The question says that zero trust is more achievable for as a small and medium businesses. Do you agree with that sentence and why?
Because of the size. When you're a big company, there's a lot of things for you to cover and a lot of things that have been already settled. So the processes and stuff that are in a part of the company for a long time. And for SMBs, the companies, because the sizes are smaller and they may be transitioning now to from what they had or from how they did things to the digital age, to the digital transformation as we call it. That process can be cared in a way where as the company grows, they will already have implemented a security layer of activities or a zero trust approach to what they do. So instead of thinking that because I'm too small, or maybe because I don't have enough, revenue to invest in security, it would be harder for me. It's actually the opposite, because a lot of what goes into zero trust is about having procedures and processes that covers your company. And if especially if you're small, to hire a solution that will allow you, for example, to manage identities for a less amount of users that you may have, the cheaper it gets for you to do so. And you can start growing and building from that on to moving forward as a company grows. So people that will join your company, once they get there, they will already be inserted in this security environment that addresses zero trust. So it'll be easier for them to be a part of it instead of having to deal with a big company that has different teams spread across the globe with based on different regulations. So I think one of the reasons why it's easier, it's because of the size actually. I
Yeah,
don't know
they're
if you
much
agree
more
with me.
nimble. They're much more nimble and
Yes,
can react much more
yes,
quickly,
that's
which is
true.
great. Which is great, and also they can do this internally. They can move more quickly internally, make decisions much more quickly, much faster. But also, they oftentimes have a service provider that they're working with as well that can help them achieve these goals together. So
Yeah,
there's internal that they have the internal ability to move quickly and to make decisions much more quickly. But they also have some service providers that they can leverage that can help them adapt more quickly as well. So I think that was the feedback from the show, and as well as the feedback that I've seen personally.
And I think you've mentioned something very interesting, Roger, and it is something that I like. I really like it. Uh, Implementing cybersecurity passes through three pillars, I think: people, processes, and tools. And we've talked before about cyber awareness, and among those three, at least my opinion, people are the most important aspect of cybersecurity, because it's useless to implement the state of the art of cybersecurity tools without addressing the people aspect. Because,
yeah,
well, people don't know how to use those tools, and they can, for example, open a phishing email, and then your solutions are useless because of this.
Yeah, sure.
And
Well, we're running out of time. We're running out of time now, but I'd like to give you guys the word for the final thoughts, so we can close the webinar. You want to start, Daryl, with your final thoughts?
I thought it was a. I thought the this year's RSA conference was fantastic. My favorite part, honestly, was the session where we watched the board of directors and the CISO post breach, how they handled the event, how they responded to the breach, how they responded and made it public, what their thinking was throughout the entire process. I thought that was the most valuable session that I sat through.
Yeah, the same here.
Excellent.
And I think to if I could get something out here based on what I felt as far as being a part of the RSA, is that security is a meaningful work. So it's up to the CISO or to whoever deals with security inside of a company to be able to build a bridge between what the company mission is and how security enables that mission to actually be fulfilled. And that's why the work is so meaningful. That's why the work is so important for the company. And there are a lot of ways to connect that. So security is meaningful for the company, for the society, for everything. We need to be safe in order to do anything. So I think that's more message that I really like, that people are looking into it, and not just as part of a IT work, but actually a job that provides people to enables people to actually do their best work out there. I
That's
love
right.
that.
Great point.
Excellent. Well, you guys, we're running out of time, but well, I'd like to thank you guys for the amazing conversations that we had. Probably we'll take a lot of takeaways from our audience. Took a lot of takeaways from this session, and I'd like to thank everyone also who attended the session, and also invite them to visit our website. We have lots of material regarding our blog has articles regarding the topics that we have covered during the session. And I'd like to thank Dario for the conversation here, also Roger.
Yep.
And well, see you guys on our next webinar.
And hopefully next year we're gonna get together to talk about RSA once again. I
That's
love
right.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. All right, guys.
Okay, you
Thank you
guys.
so much. Yeah.
See
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.